What's going on, everybody, and welcome to today's video. So as always, here we are with another one. So I wanted to chat with you guys about this question. So I think this question is one I haven't answered yet, and that is, what made me use two different camera systems? So I did a video a while back, and it was regarding my experience with using my Sony a6400 that I sold a while ago. And as it turns out, I didn't get to edit in that video. Maybe I'll still consider sharing that video with you guys, but just behind the scenes, I pretty much just did my research and made decisions, of course, off camera, because I just kind of wanted to find what worked for me. And some of you may have watched my other videos, but what really kicked it off with me using the Fuji system was the Fuji XS10. So I did sell that camera, so I no longer have that camera, but that camera was the introduction into the Fuji system, while still giving me the features that I was used to from my Sony a6400. So that camera was just a game changer for me. I love that camera. I really enjoyed it and all that I used it for. But as I started growing and getting more familiar with using the camera and in particularly, advancing my skills, I wanted something more naturally. So I moved up into the Fuji X-T4, and then I, picked up the Fuji X-T30 Mark II. So I started getting pretty deep into the Fuji system, and I still am pretty deep into the system. I love the system, which is why I still have my Fuji X-T4 and my Fuji X-T30 Mark II. I plan to stay in the X mount system. Those are my just current feelings and my wants at this moment. So I don't have any plans to really move out of the Fuji X mount system. One, because the appeal of the system, I am now familiar with the system. I love my Fuji cameras, and they just look so dope. Like, come on now. Still to this day, I get oohs and ahs over this camera. I just love how it looks. I just love how the lenses look, and it's just aesthetically pleasing to the eye for me, which is important, and that may not be as important for others, of course, but it is a thing. It's a thing, and it's definitely a thing for me. However, on the flip side here, the Sony FS30 is no slouch. I mean, this camera looks amazing. I be showing love to my Sony FS30, of course, like very heavily, especially lately. And the Sony FS30 has just been my only camera that I've used so far, with of course the lens of choice, and for multiple reasons. But even though I had a main focus for my Sony FS30, which is to do video with, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the video. But for me, I like for cameras to have more than one focus. I like for them to do multiple different things. So when I decided to get back into the Sony E-mount system, I went for the Sony FS30. After, quite a bit of research, I knew I wanted something that was very video focused. I just didn't know which camera would fit that role for me, being that I love my Fuji cameras for photography and video, but it just started to become a little bit of a cumbersome setup and just overall like long format filming to do with my Fuji cameras due to like various reasons. So when looking at more of a video focused camera that also can do photography very well, I ran across the FS30, and honestly, I remember this camera being released, but of course at the time I was not in the E-mount system, but I thought it was really cool. I'm more focused on APS-C sensors versus full frame. So currently I have no plans to go the full frame route. In my opinion, for everything that I do and everything that I need, an APS-C sensor can get it done. And I was really trying to stick with that. So for video, I decided to take a look at the FS30, and I ended up going for it, and so far it has not been a regret for me. So this camera has been just everything I needed to be. It is a beast. It is pretty much the FS30 in a crop sensor format, and I mean, just look at it. It is a beast. I mean, the camera body here is just made to film content for hours and hours and hours, and that is exactly what I needed here for this particular camera, and I absolutely am so happy with the purchase with this. So again, this has been my EDC camera for the last 6 months, and I have enjoyed every bit of it. So I wanted to get back very familiar with the Sony E-mount system along with the new menu system that they have. So really quick, the menu system is just a lot more fluid, easier to navigate through, which was another reason why I was looking something for a little bit more simple to learn and, switch into a system that offered that type of menu visibility and to navigate through and, learn settings and quickly change things as I get more comfortable with the camera and learn my photography and video style. So yeah, I was really excited to get back into the E-mount system with this new menu setup. But yeah, this camera has been pretty much my everyday camera, and it is meant to be my workhorse camera. So again, I pretty much film all my content now with my Sony FX30. It is for that, to get everything done, and again, still take photos whenever I needed to because the quality is still there with the specs of this camera and just overall with the specs and everything else today. So in my opinion, this is definitely still more than enough to take a picture. So definitely, again, looking for that 2-in-1 functionality from my camera, but still more video focused for me. Now, of course, when it comes to the photography side of things, it's definitely not that fast, shooting style of a photography camera. So it does have that single shot capability. It doesn't, have a high burst rate. You can only take pictures one at a time. That may be a drawback for some people. For me, it's not a big deal, being that it will teach me to slow down a little bit more and focus more on the picture that I'm trying to capture and framing. So that actually can work towards my advantage with relearning, exactly what I'm trying to capture in the framing and composing my shot. So yeah, so that is why I made this camera right here an EDC camera, just to kind of again, learn it, get very familiar with it, and also, work on some photography skills as well. So with that being said there, let's get back to talking about my Fuji X-T4 and just my Fuji cameras in general. Now with my Fuji cameras, of course, they are very photography focused cameras in general. Of course, with the Fuji X-T4, it is very much more video focused or have the best of both worlds. However, for me, when it comes to video, as I kind of already touched on, the video side of things just created a little bit of limitations for me. I wasn't able to film comfortably for a long period of time. So, just to address that point there head on, for with my X-T4, I can only film for about roughly 30, maybe a little over 30 minutes. So out of the box, default settings for video, not changing the temperature of the camera. And what I mean by that is that not increasing how hot the camera can be while recording. I left it at default for a long time. I would say the camera got warm and would give me a warning around 20 minutes, I would say maybe 25 minutes of filming. It just all depends, how often I stop recording, start back, or just continuously record. I would say about 20-25 minutes. 30 absolute max. Once I reached that time frame, it did give me a warning. I think it may have shut off once or twice, or it would just stop recording. But most of the time I would just, manually stop recording and kind of give the camera some time to cool down. So after dealing with that for about a little over a year, it got kind of exhausting and annoying to deal with, and it kind of just, put a negative impact on me filming long form content. But I had to figure out the funds and get the funds to, consider what are my options from there. So after some time, that's why I moved back into the Sony E-mount system. My video experience with my Sony a6400 was really, really good. However, it was just some things that I felt like did not fit what I need in a camera. So I quickly outgrew the a6400. However, I was still trying to stay within a certain budget. But getting back to my Fuji X-T4 though, I still wanted to keep it. Of course, it's a beast at photography. I mean, of course, any camera, in my opinion, if it has the specs you're looking for and if it can take a picture fairly well without limiting aspects about it, it's a capable camera. And then for me, what I've learned over the time is that the best camera, as people say, is the one that you carry around. However, though, yeah, the video side of things for my Fuji cameras was just not cutting it for me. So it made me revisit some things. However, though, I want to get back into carrying my Fuji cameras again because I want to use them and I don't want them sitting around around collecting dust. So it's just one of these cameras that I know that I can do some video with it, but I'll keep it more like photography focused and, you know, some quick burst videos. If I'm not doing a long format video where I'm just going to be talking for at least 30 minutes. So to be honest, I'm just going to pull out my Sony FX30 for all video things. I mean, that's what this camera is definitely mainly going to be for, and it's going to get used for that for sure. So anything like out and about, or I just want to switch it up a little bit, I'm probably going to carry one of my Fuji cameras with me. So, you know, the Fuji colors, unmatched. I'm just going to say it right now. I love Fuji colors. Like, I cannot stress it enough how much I love Fuji colors. The film simulations are amazing and they all look so good. Of course, I have my specifics that I like, which I may share with you guys a little bit later. Overall, you can't beat Fuji colors, you know, right now. So I think the colors that you get from a Fuji camera, as well as the Fuji body and how good it looks, it's just really hard to beat. I mean, look at this, y'all. I mean, come on, let me just turn this on. So it may not show that well on camera, but I mean, I just love how good this camera feels. I definitely had to get used to it because it was a learning curve, especially with all the dials and everything like that. And I like the fact that Fuji has opened up their line of cameras to kind of like just have that flexibility for different type of photographers and videographers and hybrid shooters. So if you do both, I feel like Fuji has opened up their line to hybrid, photography focused, video focused peeps out there. So if you enjoy both, there's probably a camera out there for you in the Fuji line. If you enjoy photography, there's, you know, the X line that you may find to be enjoyable. It all depends because, you know, some photographers feel like the PSAM dial, they find that to be enjoyable over the dials that Fuji has from the X-T4 and then also with the X-T5. You find these dials to be a little bit overwhelming. That's definitely understandable, and there's possibly a camera out there for you that doesn't have all the different dials here. So on that note, when it comes to my Fuji cameras and why I went for the X-T4 once I got comfortable with, you know, what I was looking for out of a camera, is the dials on this particular line of cameras. Now, it is so much more engaging. It definitely kind of makes you think a little bit more and puts you more in the feel and immerse you a little bit more in the photography mental aspect of things. And I think that's pretty cool for me personally because it allows me to learn things that I just haven't discovered yet. Also, while still taking my time, seeing what I'm looking for and possibly getting more out of the camera than I intended. While I do like the camera to show me the best possible outcomes for a picture, it also allows me the flexibility to learn and, you know, kind of like manually change some things that I prefer. And I think that's really good with the XT line of cameras and why I like the XT line of cameras there. So both systems have definitely found their way in my world, and they're definitely starting to develop, you know, more focused roles. However, again, for me personally, the 2-in-1 role is a must. Both systems, as well as the cameras, have to be able to do just more than one thing. And that's just how it is for me because let's just be honest, y'all, these cameras are expensive. And just for me, I consider myself a common consumer. So I need things to do both because money, you know what I'm saying? Money's hard to come by. So I definitely need my tech to do more than one thing. Yeah, that's just to be, of course, fully transparent with you guys. So hopefully those few reasons give you an idea and why I am in both systems. The next thing I want to talk about is what both systems offer. So I will say the Sony EMOUNT system has a huge line of options of lenses. I mean, right now, I don't think there is just not a lens that you probably can't find that just will at least to start you off with or get a little bit of a lineup going. There's so many lenses in the Sony EMOUNT system, it's crazy. So it was a bittersweet moment to initially get out of the system because the lens options are insane. So I think you're definitely going to find the lens that you're looking for with the EMOUNT system, and there's still even more being made, which is crazy, but it's a good thing because it definitely opens up that door for what are you looking for, the quality you're looking for, and making sure that you have options just in general. So it's good to have options, though it could be a little overwhelming for some people, but I will say I'd rather to have the options than be too limited, because when it comes to the Fuji X mount, not as many options in comparison to Sony E mount lens options. Fuji X mount is just now kind of like opening up that door for you. Definitely when I first got into the S mount system, there weren't that many lenses to pick from, but I will say shortly after I got into the system, the lens options definitely picked up. With that being said, I did learn that I don't use a lot of different focal lengths. However, that is something worth noting. So that was another reason why I felt like the Sony E mount system definitely has a lot more flexibility with lens options there. If that's your thing, if you like to test out different lenses that comes out, Sony is likely going to get it early on in the release of a lens, and that is pretty good, specifically with third-party options. Now, I will say Viltrox has been a huge key player with X mount. As you can see, I have my 13mm f1.4 on my ST4 now, and I love Viltrox lenses. I actually got Viltrox lenses when I was in E mount first. I knew I wanted to use that brand on my X mount cameras as well. So with that being said though, the options are definitely elevating a lot more with Fuji, especially with Sigma and Tamron being brands that you can use their lenses on your Fuji camera. So that is a huge game changer, and why I currently prefer to use both systems. So just a quick note, I did mention earlier in the video that I only been using my FX30 for the last 6 months. However, I have taken a couple of thumbnail pictures or snapped a couple of photos with my Fuji camera. So I will say I haven't like fully not been engaged with them. That's just something I wanted to mention there, being that I still keep up with the lens options in the X mount system. But again, I just enjoy both camera systems. I think each one have a lot to offer in their own perspective. For me personally, just like with phones and other tech, I like to see what all is out there and what are my options there, so and not just be too limited to one system. And that's kind of like the goal that I have now with my cameras, and being that, you know, I'm thankful and blessed to be in this space where I can use both systems. And one thing to mention with that is that you don't have to break the bank. If you want to be into multiple systems, there are budget options out there for you. I definitely am one that always says, you know, if you can save some money, definitely do so, and definitely check out budget options. You'll be surprised what the budget options offer, and that what you can really get out of those pickups. So for me personally, I don't always have to go for the latest and greatest, and I don't have to go for the high dollar, you know, options that are available. Those budget options definitely have been getting it done for me. Hence the Viltrox lens options as well as the Sigma options. So if I can get the high quality that I'm looking for while still, you know, not breaking the bank, I check it out. One more thing I'll mention too, if you want to know a little bit more about my experience regarding like the pros and cons that I have with the Sony and the Fuji system, and you know, just using both, let me know. I can make a video for you guys if you're interested. So I'm definitely open to making a video for you guys as well. And if you just need more, you know, detailed responses, I can, you know, do that for you.
So just to let you guys know, I really be oohing and awing over both cameras. I mean, they both look so good. Just look phenomenal, and they just make me want to pick them up and use them. And that's a huge and key thing for me too. I'll have to be excited by picking up the camera, because if I'm not that excited to use it, then I don't find myself to be productive with what I'm trying to get done. And again, this is where aesthetics is definitely important to me. So I have to be excited to use my tech, and if I'm not, yeah, but I'm always excited to pick up each camera to get to work. So on that note of the temperature concern that I have with my Fuji ST4 is that, you know, I wanted something that can definitely, you know, record video for however long I need it without any issues. And that is something I definitely have not experienced an issue with my Sony FX30 at this time. I mean, it has an internal fan, so everything is just running so smoothly right now. Like even with the camera on and just sitting here, the battery life is really good as well. But just to keep it on the point of the temperature concern that I do not have with my Sony FX30 is that I can film for however long I need to without any issues here. versus my Fuji X-T4, it was a major concern. But once I set that to high, I was able to film around 45 minutes for sure. Again, I would manually just stop recording once I seen that warning. Now for me, again, that's kind of like my basic minimum time that I'm recording, and generally I just need really more time. But the goal I had for my next video focus camera was definitely something that I can film for however long I want without any issues. And just really happy that Sony released the FS30. So for someone like me, the FS30 is just perfect because again, that APS-C crop sensor is just something that I am absolutely a fan of, and it fits everything that I need. So I just wanted to mention that there. However, you know, I've seen that people have been able to get a lot of recording time with their units, but for particularly my Fuji X-T4, it kind of reaches that 45-minute limit when the temperature setting is changed to high. I'm able to record around that 45-minute mark. So for me, that's just not enough, and I definitely need that flexibility to record however long, and especially much longer than 45 minutes, because in the future I plan to record much longer videos. So I definitely need a camera that can do that. The Sony FS30 is definitely checking that box for sure. So one more thing I want to mention as to why I'm sticking with both systems is that I really find that both systems have a huge benefit. I enjoy each aspect about each system, and each system is currently offering the things that I'm looking for to have, and it doesn't really necessarily warrant for me to get rid of my Fuji cameras and fully switch back to E-mount. I think both again can just open up that door for me to continue to enjoy Sony benefits as well as Fuji benefits. And again, like I said, them Fuji colors are just unbeatable. While I will say though, I am so happy to see that Sony color science has improved a lot. I mean, just looking at the color right now on the picture profile 1, I'm not sure if this is the best viewing angle right now, but I'll snap a picture for you so you can see that Sony's color science, in my opinion, has, you know, progressed and gotten to the taste that I like. Now, of course, that is a very subjective point. I found that with my Sony a6400 was just a little not quite the colors that I preferred. When I look at a photo, I felt like I had to do quite a bit of adjusting. And to be quite frank with you guys, I like to take a picture and have a straight out of camera pleasing image. So that was another reason why I switched to Fuji. I just love the image quality and again, the colors. So the color science now in both systems come very close to each other, and I don't really find myself like wishing that I can film a video with my Fuji because the Sony FS30 just have those colors that I really like. And it goes to more like of a sensor thing too. There could be some more tech things behind the scenes because Sony does make Fuji sensors, but again, Fuji do their own little color tweaking once they get the sensors. But I will say Sony has definitely worked on their color science and is way more pleasing for me, and I just do not find myself adjusting the colors that much, if at all, on my FS30. So that was another key indicator of why I definitely wanted to keep both, because now this just opens up the door for me even more to using both systems interchangeably.
One other thing I wanted to mention as well when I consider getting back into the E-mount system and using Sony cameras is the fact that the autofocus, I mean, let's just be honest, Sony is just at the top when it comes to autofocus. I mean, the autofocus is just really superior, and I just can really appreciate how easy and well my FS30 focus, and that pretty much is, from what I've seen so far, is not an issue with other Sony cameras that have recently released, probably in the last 5 years. And just the autofocus has been such a huge key selling point for Sony cameras. I would say within the last maybe 5 years, it's really like no muss, no fuss. Like, it's going to work in whatever condition you pretty much in. Now, I will say the autofocus on my Fuji cameras have definitely not been too much of a worry. I've had good experience with the autofocus. I will say I know there were some concerns with firmware updates that Fuji had pushed out that altered the autofocus for some people, but for me during that time that wasn't an issue, so I was able to use my Fuji cameras without a huge concern with the autofocus. And then just over time, as I learned from previous Fuji cameras, the autofocus has definitely gotten better. Again, I started out with the Fuji XS10. By then the autofocus was really good, and from there I just always had a good experience for the most part, but I just had an even better experience with my Sony camera cameras. However, I have no concerns with using both cameras and just having no worries with the autofocus there. So I also thought that was just worth mentioning for you. This also give you some more background information and context. So yeah, hopefully you guys, enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to let me know. Drop them down in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. With all that being said, I hope you guys consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. You already know doing all the YouTube things definitely helps out. And if you know someone who's interested to see or know a little bit more about what it's like to be in more than one camera system, hopefully share this video with them as well. But with all that, I hope to see you guys in my next one. Peace.